Hi, this is Mark Zinkowitz, and welcome to the Germination podcast this week. The COVID-19 pandemic has undoubtedly been a big challenge for a lot of organizations, our seed associations in particular. This week I will be speaking to representatives of the Canadian Seed Trade Association, Canadian Seed Growers Association, the Canadian Seed Institute, and the Commercial Seed Analysts Association of Canada. We'll discuss some of the challenges they faced as a result of all this, but also how technology is coming to the rescue and allowing them to function despite cancellation of their recent meetings. This weekly podcast has been a big success. This will be episode number 4 now. If you have an idea or a suggestion for the show, please, by all means, you can send me an email or reach out to me on Twitter. I'll be providing my contact details at the end of today's episode. Krista Erickson is Executive Director of the Commercial Seed Analysts Association of Canada. CSAC was going to be the first association to vote on the National Seed Organization proposal. Their annual meeting was scheduled for the end of May, but was cancelled when the COVID-19 pandemic hit the Western Hemisphere. Thankfully, CSAC is figuring out how to use technology to ensure that their annual meeting is able to go on and that voting is able to continue. I caught up with Krista the other week to talk about some of these challenges. Krista told me that CSAC will be using webinars as part of the solution to ensure that its meetings and training sessions are able to go on in light of the pandemic.
So what we've decided to do is hold a series of shorter webinars to cover our workshop topics. So we will hold our workshop webinars on May 26th, June 2nd, and June 9th. And then we're going to hold our open forum virtually on June 16th, and then our virtual AGM on June 17th. And that's when we plan to also hold our amalgamation vote for the NSO. So we're looking forward to that. I think it will be a great opportunity and still allow our members to connect and have an open dialogue with each other and network. So we're excited in regards to that aspect.
Krista says seed analysts everywhere are coping well during the pandemic, using social distancing procedures and the like to ensure that they stay safe while getting their important lab work done.
Yeah, so some of the labs that I've talked to, some of them have their employees currently not working, those with younger kids that are in school, so they're currently staying home, so that helps with the social physical distancing within the lab, and they're just trying to do their part in maintaining that distance from each other, and they've implemented procedures and protocols for receiving samples and handling samples in the lab. A lot of them are locking their doors and have a bin outside for sample drop-off, and just doing what they can to try and keep everyone safe.
Roy Van Wyk is Executive Director of the Canadian Seed Institute. CSI has postponed all registered seed establishment and lab audits in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. He says working with technology is nothing new for CSI and its clients, and he says everybody is doing quite well despite the pandemic.
Yeah, we're well positioned as far as the staff being able to do our work, and then the people that we work with under contract to do some of the activities that the staff normally do. We're well positioned there to work remotely. So it's just took a few days for us to get ourselves organized for some of the things that we there's certain documents and stuff like that and records that kind of flow that don't flow electronically. And we have clients, that the Amish community and so on that don't deal with email and so on. So there's a couple of things we still have to iron out, but as far as running the business, we're okay. It's a little bit different. So we're fine, I guess, is also at the moment for audits and inspections, but we're working on policy to to try and deal with managing whether it's the seed program audits or the audits we do for the Grain Commission, for the identity preservation, food safety programs, and even the organic inspections. We have to come up with techniques here and tools for auditing remotely. So whether it's, I guess you'd call it almost virtual audits.
He says the COVID-19 pandemic could actually result in some innovations for CSI in terms of conducting audits in a electronic format.
Yeah, there are some definite challenges, but because the audit, an on-site audit is very interactive between the auditor or inspectors and the clients. So you have to be able to ask questions and be able to demonstrate, some of the compliance with records. So they have to, they'll often during audit, they'll go and retrieve records and be able to show them to you, whether they're weigh bills or, some sort of a log, maybe for field work or activity, or, the logs they keep for any time seed, for instance, moves from a bin to, goes through the processing plant and so on. So all those records there, they're on site. So, we're looking at things like, tools like GoToMeeting or Zoom or Microsoft Teams, where you can actually use the camera and use the computers to do the virtual inspection. People, for instance, could hold documents up to them, to the camera to show you the stuff that they're trying to retrieve. So we're looking at kind of these creative ways, I guess, to deal with the audit. There are pieces we got to try and sort out still, because there's depending on what program you're in, there's things that need to be seen. So you need to go to a field and take a look at, similar to seed crop inspection, you need to look at fields and see if they're there's the buffers are in place and those sorts of things. So and take a look around the facility, look at the storage and how product is labeled. So there's some things that are a little bit trickier to manage, and we're still working our way through those. So we're probably going to be about at least 2 more weeks here to work through the policy, the new policies, and then do some trial runs, trial audits to see how it works. But the other piece that we have is we're not sure yet where the government is going to support us on virtual audits, and is it they just haven't given any guidance either just yet. So we can't help but think that we might be able to start with clients that are low risk. So we have that might be one way we can tackle and start working with low risk clients, or clients that in some of the programs are really more traceability exercises. They're document exercises anyway, that we could do those. Start with those audits and inspections first, and then figure out maybe do split audits where we can do the document part of the audit, record keeping audit first, and when if the pandemic subsides in a few months, then we can follow up with a shorter on-site inspection.
Doug Miller is Managing Director of Certification and Technology Services for the Canadian Seed Growers Association. Like SESAC and CSI, CSGA has been able to weather the COVID-19 storm relatively well due to some of the technological innovations it's adopted in the past.
Yeah, well, the CSG office in Ottawa remains open, and so there's one person in the office most days who's handling the processing of mail. But for the most part, all CSJ staff have gone remote. CSJ has had remote staff like myself who live out of Toronto, working remotely. So for us, this is our system has been built around that capacity in terms of our day-to-day work, in terms of our phone system. They were all built around that remote model. So for us, it all kind of started back in 2018 with the tornado that went through Ottawa. It really raised a lot of concerns that we had with business continuity. And from there, we kind of pivoted on things like abandoning our old phone system and moving towards our VoIP, voice over IP phone system, so we can be accessible anywhere. So those were transitions that we made that kind of have allowed this transition to remote work for us to be pretty seamless.
CSGA's joint annual meeting with the Canadian Seed Trade Association was scheduled for July in Winnipeg, but has been cancelled. Miller says that technology is helping come to the rescue.
Yeah, members of our team have been exploring options about how to have this electronic AGM. And so we're currently working with a vendor to be able to handle that process for us. So information's will be coming out shortly about our revised AGM data. I think we're still finalizing some things on our end, but our intention is to have that virtual. And so what that will look like, we're still working that out, but the vendor that we have that we're working with right now has a lot of expertise in this realm, online voting as well. So we feel like we're in good hands moving forward.
He adds that CSGA members should stay tuned for some exciting innovations coming down the pipe.
So we're actually going to be rolling out some new automated tools on our members area platform, which is a subset of the SeedCert, that's going to be requesting different forms ahead of time, things like maps and tags, so that the inspectors during the inspection season won't have to get those directly from the grower. So they'll be directly in the SeedCert platform that they use daily. So just kind of stepping up those efforts. We're also looking at rolling out a digital version of our crop certificate during this time, just because there's a lot of uncertainty regarding mailing, our ability to process that mail. And so for us, we're looking to ensure business continuity. So we're looking at rolling out a digital version of our certificate that would be enabled within our members area, available to the grower and to the assignee, and just kind of speeding up the whole certification process. So if things do get slowed down a little bit due to COVID, that we'll have a system that's very responsive and fast to be able to keep up with things as they shift.
Claudio Fuellner is Regulatory Affairs and Trade Manager for the Canadian Seed Trade Association. As I mentioned earlier, CSTA's joint annual meeting with the Canadian Seed Growers Association was cancelled. It was originally scheduled for July in Winnipeg, but like CSGA, the CSTA is figuring out some virtual options to ensure that its annual meeting can still be held. He notes that the COVID-19 pandemic has had a ripple effect throughout the seed trade.
This is a crisis that I think nobody of us has lived through. So, but what I can see already is I think a big problem will be shortage of labor for all kinds of sectors, the seed industry included. Temporary foreign workers are still accessible through the governmental programs, but the question is, are they coming? Do their homelands let them leave? What are the concerns at other borders? So I think labor will be one of the high priorities for seed companies, and even local staff calling in sick or going in isolation. So facilities and warehouses might be affected, and governmental services in the same way, due to employees and staff calling in sick or not being able to enter certain premises. This all has to be figured out. I think our companies and the government is doing all they can to mitigate shortage of labor in that space. With regard to international seed trade, we know the virus doesn't affect plants and animals so far. While focusing on seed, there shouldn't be extra phytosanitary measures taken to protect countries from COVID-19 through seed lots, but we see that shortage of labor again in NPPOs might be affecting shipping and trading and international cargo being delivered on time.
Despite the challenges and the uncertainties related to the pandemic, he's confident that the industry will emerge stronger as a result.
Maybe we can learn from this crisis situation and government just providing essential services, what services are really essential and what services are not needed anymore. And after this outbreak, in terms of thinking about seed regulatory modernization, maybe we learn a few lessons during this emergency and really test the system. And coming out of that emergency, we'll see what worked, what was essential, what wasn't, what industry could take on more, what we took on during the crisis we'll keep doing. Nobody knows what will happen, but I'll imagine at least we'll learn something about the seed system in Canada and what parts of it are essential to operate and what parts are relics from an older time that might need modernization.
Thanks so much for joining me on the podcast today. Speaking of seed regulatory modernization, please tune in to our webinar on April 14th at 1 p.m. Eastern for the first in a series of webinars on seed regulatory modernization. You can register for that webinar by going to germination.ca and clicking webinars in the top menu. And if you have any suggestions for the podcast, please let us know. You can reach out to me on social media. We are at Germination Mag on Facebook and Twitter, and you can find us on LinkedIn as well. And for more great podcasts, visit germination.ca.